Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ruairi Hayden. I'm a lecturer in TU Dublin. I lecture in the School of Surveying and Construction Management. And today, what I want to focus in on is a module where we're using asynchronous learning to enhance the pedagogical experience in BIM technologies to construction students. And really what that means is that we looked at how we deliver our BIM modules, and we tried to focus on what the best teaching methods might be for the students. So the background to this really is we had a number of modules that we delivered within the programme, BIM modules within a number of programmes across the school. And we looked at how we delivered those modules, and we tried a number of different methodologies in a number of different modules. Now this is an ongoing study, but in our most recent module, which is a module in measuring and costing, it's a quantity surveying module. We looked at using asynchronous methods. So we looked at using a lot of online videos so that the students could access a lot of online material that was produced by the lecturer to deal with a lot of the issues that they may have had with the technologies, so that the lecturer could then focus very much on the processes involved, the BIM processes involved in measuring buildings. Okay, so within TU Dublin, there's a lot of initiative around learning and teaching, and one of the themes that we currently have is reimagining our curriculum team. And the emphasis on this is on teaching practice that transforms student learning and programme delivery. Okay, so we want to see what methodologies we can use that will transform the students' learning. The government has also initiated the use of technology in higher education in the roadmap for enhancement in the digital world 2015-2017, and we were very cognizant of that when we were designing this module. Okay. So the module that we selected for this was probably the third module and the third iteration of this study. And the previous ones were a construction technology module where we had live video streaming. And then the second one was a Revit for construction managers module. And then this one, which kind of took the improvements from the previous module, is a module in measurement and costing. So the aim of the research is to examine the educational value in delivering BIM education in a blended learning environment. Okay, so it's to investigate how blending learning can enhance the academic experience, examine the student's perspective, which is very important. We wanted to see what the student's perspective was and whether they felt that they were meeting the learning outcomes in a better way than previously, and also to examine how the technologies can be used for formal assessment. Okay, so it's through submission of assessments and through feedback. So, what is blended learning? Well, blended learning is a combination of online and offline delivery. And I think it's very important that we emphasise that this was not an online programme per se, and it was very much a mix between the online and the offline, so the in-class, face-to-face teaching. Okay, so we use the information technology tools available to us, so whether it be the VLE, the virtual learning environment, and we adapted it to suit our requirements for the module. We also saw the idea around blended learning, that as well as learning the material in the module, we felt that the students' ICT knowledge was greatly increased, so that they started to use cloud computing that they may have not used before. They started to communicate with each other through chat rooms and forums, and also then they had to constantly keep up to date with the material that they had. And we were able then to monitor their progress through the VLE. Okay, so there's some talk about this when I when I put up the title, because people were saying, what is asynchronous? So really the main difference is we ran a synchronous module before, and that is where we have a live stream. So every Friday morning we would have a lecture, and the lecturer would be in a computer room, and he'd be delivering it, and the students would be wherever they wanted to be. They could be in the workplace, they could be at home, they could be on a bus. And from our research on that module, some of them were actually on a bus, so they were kind of commuting. So for this module though, we went with an asynchronous method, and the reason was because we felt that there was an awful lot of time spent in the classroom dealing with technology type questions, and there were questions that everyone was asking. So you'd be asked how to extract into an Excel file, and then the next student would ask, how do you extract into an Excel file, and the next student would ask. So in order to try and maximise the time that you had and be as efficient as possible with the time that you had with them on a face-to-face basis, all those questions, those common type of questions, were answered through short videos. So the asynchronous were pre-recorded material, and then they were uploaded onto the virtual learning environment. And what this allowed the students to do, it gave them an awful lot of freedom, because they could access it in their own time. So they always had access to the material, and they could go and access that in their own time. And they tended to, especially part-time students who may be working, they tended to use, say, a couple of hours after work each evening, and the material was all there available for them. As well as the videos, they also had all the assessment material and all the notes available to them as well. So Dermot's just going to give a brief overview of the overall project and how that was set up.
So I don't expect you to read any of that there. Just to give you an overview of what this project was, it was a quantity surveying exercise as such, whereby the students worked in Revit. Now, they didn't design in Revit as such, they just added some quantity surveying information into the model. They were taught how to create different views, how to do sections, and essentially mine the data rather than actually create any kind of modelling structure. There was an overall project brief to the project, and the overall project brief gave the students initially from the start that there was a number of different tasks, and these tasks fed in to their overall continuous assessment. It outlined how much each task was worth, the breakdown, the rubrics in terms of marking, and it also gave them some kind of data that they would use throughout, or that was common to all the tasks, which essentially was the contingency they needed to use in their cost management, the inflation rates that they were to use, when the tender date was, and the date of each estimate. So it gave them a kind of a common structure that they would apply then when they did their tasks. So they did 4 tasks, and it basically simulated design and construction project. So they were given, or at least design and cost management. They were given a model, a mass model. They did a cost plan on that mass model with very little information, applying cost. And then they were given another model with a little more detail. That's an elemental model, going through the levels of detail in BIM. And then they were given another model which is nearly completely design. And then they were actually given that same model with some changes. So they essentially had to do a cost plan on each model, and they had to do the exercise, and they had to actually explain to me how they did it with screenshots and videos, etc. So I've essentially explained what they've done. You'll see on the left hand side was task 1, and that's the model they were getting, kind of a crude image of the model they were given. Then you'll see in task 2, the model they had had a little more detail, and then the LOD 300, BIM LOD 300, they had a good bit more, nearly a fully fledged model. In terms of the product, they had to produce their Excel cost plan. They had to do the narration, screenshots, and even produce some videos in terms of what they did. And then they had to actually give me their file, their Revit file and their Costex file. So getting down to the nitty gritty, or the important part of the project as such, or delivery of the project, the VLE we used was Google Classroom. With Google Classroom, it's used in conjunction with other G Suite applications. Those being what most people are familiar with, using G Suite, Google Drive, Calendar, email, and Google Forms, etc. So that was the kind of VLE environment. We've changed since then. So I have a new VLE environment that we're using, or we have a new VLE environment that we're using this year. So it's just getting to grips with that. But ultimately, it's the same. The most important thing for the students is that it wasn't just about their 2-hour lecture that they had, or their 2-hour tutorial. That once they left the classroom, they knew they had some backup. So if they missed the class for whatever reason, just like any kind of, when you're doing something very computery, you get it, you can follow it, you can do it in class, but when you leave the class, a lot of time for students it's gone, and I've had problems with that whereby they were there, they were attending, but they just couldn't retain the information. So at least with the YouTube videos that they were supplied with, they could go and look back, and they found that at least we think they found that very beneficial, because they could replay exactly what went on in the class. I think that, yeah, this is the end of my slide.
Okay, so from the point of view of the lecturer's point of view, we found that being able to create the videos, we could always refer the students back to, say, the videos, and we had specific videos for specific tasks that had to be completed. So once the module was complete then, and the students weren't aware that we were doing any type of research on this during the project, it was only after them that we said that we'd get some feedback from it. And we did this through an online questionnaire. We met with all the students actually in the computer room, and they answered the questionnaire while we explained to them what we were doing. And we set it down into a number of sections. So we focused in on the technology. Okay, well, how do they find the technology? How do they find this as a student experience as opposed to their traditional forms? How do they find the assessment and the feedback that they got through the assessment? And then just really what their overall experiences was and how the module might be enhanced. So we sent it out to 50 students, and we had 37 respondents. Okay, their experience in the main was very positive. Okay, and they did believe that the use of blended learning enhanced their learning. Okay, some said that the module was very effective for the type of class that it was. It would be great if more classes were taught in this type of environment. So in one of the questions, we gave them a chance to write in their own comments, and these are some of the things that we got back. The students did focus on the learning of the module. So when we were asking a lot about the delivery, they tended to go back to the learning in the module. So they tended to go back to LOD 100, LOD 200, LOD 300. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. We wanted to see that the most important part of this module was that they meet the learning outcomes. And we saw that through the understanding they had of the module. And the delivery of it was secondary. Okay, so they also appreciate the flexibility. So there was a mix of part-time and full-time students, and the part-time students were very, very positive about the flexibility it gave them. A lot of them using the videos, as well as using them for their project work as part of the module, they were actually using the videos as part of their daily work because they were using similar softwares in their own workspace. Some of the responses did the delivery of the module expose you to cloud-based computing that had not previously been used, and 75% said yes to that. So we were introducing them to new things all the time. 86% of the respondents used the videos when completing revision work. So that was very positive. We said, well, there's nearly 9 out of 10 using the videos. And of those, 66% felt that the face-to-face tutorial are the most effective delivery, but the videos are a good supplement. Okay? So when they were asked that question, that was the option that they tended to opt for. So, and it was probably one of the important findings that we came across, is that they still were veering towards the face-to-face interaction. The survey showed an interesting split in terms of students' preferred method of delivery, 38% indicating that they would watch an online video if they had a problem completing a project work, while 43% indicated that they would wait for the class to ask the lecturer. And we weren't overly surprised by that because it's their first time using it, and the traditional form for most of them would be to wait for the next class to ask the lecturer in that class. And then other comments that were made was I was able to access it at any time or any place. So even if I started in college or at home, I was able to access it in my most recent work and assessment requirements. In relation to the second objective, it was found that while the students had varying view on the benefits of the blended learning approach, most agreed that it enhanced their learning. Okay. We also asked them about the videos, and we asked them did they use it for revision work, and 83% said that they did. And of those, an awful lot of them used it more than once, so they would have watched the video more than once, and we were able to track that on the VLE to see how many times the videos were being watched. So it allowed us to start to see how often people were going back, and if a video was very, very popular, it meant that they tended to have a problem with that part, so we could address that by going back in and dealing with it in class. Students also commented that they were more confident to contribute in an online environment, and this is what we found in the 3 modules. Now this is the third. We found that people are more likely to speak out or ask questions, not speak out, but type in questions in an online environment. And that allows people who might be more reserved in the class to actually put questions forward. The survey showed that the majority of students were in favour of using the online feedback system. So when the students submitted a project, this project was submitted online, and then the feedback was given online. And more importantly, from a pedagogical point of view, 78% of the students indicated that they acted on the feedback. And of these, 48% said they were more likely to act on the feedback because it was given online and it was always available there to them. Okay, we asked them then the range of teaching and learning methods used in the module and were they appropriate. And on a scale of 1 to 10, everyone answered 7 and above on that question. And that was kind of validated everything that we had done up to there and the method of delivery that was designed. So, in conclusion, I think the whole area of blended learning and the online environment for delivering BIM modules has a significant part to play in the future in the third level environment. I think the project illustrates that it's an excellent option for students, and it also allows us to use the in-class time more efficiently. So in the design of these modules, we're able to very much focus on processes and getting the students to understand that part, because the students will pick up the technologies if the online supports are in place. Once a program has decided to use a blended learning module, you have to examine the VLE that's available to you, or if you're looking at taking on a VLE, and make sure that it's appropriate. But in fairness, most of them, we've just moved over to a new VLE, as Dermot said earlier, and we're finding that it does an awful lot of the same things as the previous one and very similar to the Google Suite. So it's just something when we're looking at around access that sometimes there may have been some issues. This research did not examine the effectiveness of online learning without face-to-face element. But I think one of the big things that came from this was that the students in their comments did emphasise the importance of the face-to-face element. So the students, although they really liked the online element, they needed to have that contact on a weekly basis. So they had to have a certain element where they came into the college. And I think it's important to take that into account if you're designing a module, because there can tend to be a move to a fully online system and a full online module, but it's just that contact is invaluable, and that's what we found from from the comments that came back from the students. Okay, that's it. Okay, thank you.